Hi, thank you for clicking on the video, and I hope everyone is doing really well. I binged and I purged 2 days ago. While it happens a lot less often than it used to, I have to admit it still happens. I used to get really angry every time I would mess up, but I'm past that now. Now, when it happens, I just feel really disappointed in myself because I know that I am better than the way that I treat myself. And I know that I deserve better than the way I treat myself. I think it's important that I am completely honest and upfront about the times that I mess up, because that is part of recovery. It's understanding that mess ups do happen and that you are held accountable and that you verbally express that to someone else, whether it's a family member or a friend, just someone that you trust, and that you are able to have them hold you accountable, and in turn that holds yourself accountable. I'm presenting the fact that I messed up to the world basically because I want to present and show the truth behind recovery. It's not being perfect every single day. It's not about getting it right every single day. It's about doing your best every single day to keep fighting. And if a mess up does happen, you just accept it and you try again the next day, and you always start over. So I'm going to take this opportunity to just talk about bulimia a little bit, not to get into like the nitty-gritty of what it is, but just some things about it that I've recently come to realize, basically. First off, I never thought I would become bulimic. Bulimia just was disgusting to me. It still is disgusting. It's a disgusting habit. But for me, when I thought of people who did it, I just couldn't understand how they could force themselves to do something so vile, and how could they live with themselves by doing that. I could never imagine myself to be like that. And on top of that, I actually had a really hard time. Like, I didn't have a gag reflex when I was younger. Like, I'd try to make myself sick when I was like actually sick, and I just like had like a stomach ache or something. I just felt like there was something in me that I needed to get out, and I would try to force myself to throw up with the supervision of my mother, because even she was like, if there's something in you, like, it would be all that like acidy, gross feeling because I was sick, and I would try, and I just couldn't. I could not force myself to throw up. So becoming bulimic was like the farthest thing from my mind. I never thought I would get to this stage. I don't know what possessed me the very first time I did it. It was very hard, it was very painful, and it was very difficult to do, but the more often I did it, the easier it got. It got to a point that I could literally just contract my stomach, like suck it in and hold it, and it would induce vomiting. I didn't even have to like stick anything in my mouth. I could literally just force it out with just contracting my stomach. And there were times that I could make myself throw up just thinking about gross things, because that's how badly I wanted the food out of me. I learned that there are foods that are a lot easier to throw up than others. And when I would make the mistake of eating the foods that were tough to throw up, I would get so angry at myself, and so I don't know how to describe it. It was like I would beat myself down that I couldn't make myself throw up these foods. And rather, I should never beat myself down, but I should be more mad that I'm throwing up food than mad at myself that the fact that I can't on certain foods. I never took the time to figure out why I would binge in the first place. I knew that it was a control thing, but having to dig any deeper would require me to question my own behavior, to question my eating disorder, and the thought of doing that scared me. What was most scary was the fact that I found comfort in binging and purging. Sometimes I would binge with the sole purpose of purging. I would overeat knowing that I would get to throw up. I would get to throw up. That was my reward, and I looked forward to it. Sometimes I would fall into a trance-like state, and I wouldn't have control over my actions. There were times that I literally blacked out the whole experience, and when I came to, it was all done. Like there was, I would throw up at that point. And that's really scary when you start to lose the ability to control your actions, control your body, and remember. Random change of location. There are people in my hallway talking, and I didn't want the camera to pick up their conversation because I do film close to the hallway. So I guess we will finish the video in here. So I was talking about basically not remembering my actions, my binge purge episodes. I was blacking out. I was not living them. There were times where I remember almost feeling like I was watching myself, like in a dream where you watch yourself. And that's how it felt. I couldn't do anything. I felt completely helpless. There was nothing I could do. I couldn't take hold of my body and stop myself. With this happening more and more, I was terrified because I was losing control of my very being. Now that I have chosen recovery, I'm fighting the urge to binge in the first place, and I am learning how to recognize the triggers that cause this kind of behavior or make me want to choose or turn to this kind of behavior. I am hoping to break the cycle of binging and purging. Like I said, I still mess up, but it's only maybe once a week, twice a month, and in comparison to multiple times a day, I would call that progress. Throwing up is our body's natural reaction to a virus, to being sick, to a disease, to basically being poisoned. Our body is like, whoa, what is this? This is not supposed to be here. Therefore, it induces vomiting. When we force ourselves to throw up and our body is not aware of like any cause of alarm, when we force ourselves to throw up, our body starts to view those foods as bad and they will reject those chosen foods. Because bulimics tend to binge on the exact same foods or certain types of foods, and as the cycle continues, our bodies start to recognize those foods as a foreign substance. Our body has a memory. So eventually our body is going to reject those foods even when we do not have the intention of throwing up after eating them. Our body starts to associate those foods with purging. I now know that those foods that I used to binge on are foods I need to avoid. Not only do I need to avoid eating them, I have to keep them completely out of my house. I've had multiple instances where I would eat the foods that I used to binge on, but my purpose was not to purge later. I just wanted to eat those foods. And after eating them, out of nowhere, with no desire to purge, I would suddenly have this really strong urge to throw up. I've even thrown up those foods without even trying because my body has associated those foods with throwing up. So my mind and my body kind of think like, oh, you eat A, B, and C equaling throwing up. So you just eat A, B, and C, and suddenly your body's like, okay, time to throw up, and then you throw up. And that's happened. I think I binge because I'm dehydrated. I will be the first to admit I don't drink enough water. I try really hard, but I know for a fact I do not drink enough water. So I think what it is I think I'm hungry when really I'm just thirsty. I continue to eat and eat and eat because I think I'm hungry, but my body just wants water. That's all. And so I continue to eat to the point where all of a sudden I've overeaten. I feel guilty or upset with myself for overeating, and then I feel like I have to throw up. After a binge like that, I feel completely out of control and I beat myself down and I'm like, why couldn't I stop myself? Why did I eat that last thing? Why didn't I stop like 3 courses before this? Like, why didn't I stop? And I just beat myself up, and then it leads to the feelings of having to. And that's really scary when you feel completely dependent on such a negative behavior to feel relief for like a second, to feel happy for a second. And it's really scary to feel like I have to do this thing. I don't need to do it. I don't want to do it. I have to do it. I definitely need to make sure that I am drinking plenty of liquids throughout the day, whether that's water or juice, just getting liquids in and making sure I am well hydrated. I need to space out my meals better. Sometimes I find myself that I basically don't eat anything all day, whether I'm just running around busy or I just don't feel hungry. And I know that's not the best tactic, but sometimes it happens. I don't eat anything throughout the day, and then once I get home at night, I basically eat all my calories in one sitting. When you do that, it's a lot more stress and pressure on your body, so you might be eating 2,000 calories, but you're eating it all at once, and your body would rather have it spaced out rather than all at once and putting so much strain on your body. I end up being so hungry by the time I get home that I just overeat, and I need to stop doing that, and I definitely need to eat more throughout the day. I need to stop eating overly processed foods multiple days in a row. I know very well that when I eat a lot less like clean, healthy foods and I eat a whole lot more processed foods, my bipolar disorder starts to bring me into kind of a slump and I fall into a really deep depression. I become very down on myself and unmotivated to basically do anything. And by basically anything, I become unmotivated to even recover. So this past week I did eat a lot of processed foods, like packaged foods, rather than sticking to whole foods. And I found myself trying to convince myself that recovery was stupid and that working out was a waste of time and that I would be much happier if I stayed sick. I do meal prepping because when I come home from work, I really don't want to be bothered to have to cook. It's nice to just have food already made, don't have to worry about it because I'm so tired. But because I do meal prepping, I find myself that I basically eat the same things every week or variations of the same things. Going forward, I plan to alternate week by week or every couple of weeks or maybe once a month, 1 week out of the month. I plan to alternate between cooked foods and raw foods just to give my body a variety and that I'm not eating heavy cooked meals all the time, and that way I have like a balance. I also plan to be more lenient when it comes to my meal planning. I didn't think I was being restrictive when it came to the foods I eat, but now I'm realizing I've been a little bit rigid about like clean foods and like unclean foods, and all foods are good as long as you are eating them for their purpose. By worrying so much about like the good foods and the bad foods, I've been adding a lot of unnecessary stress to my life. And I think that leads me to, again, feeling out of control, leading me to overeat, and then feeling like I have to throw up. So that was my experience of bulimia and kind of how I'm working through it. I mean, still, it's an ongoing process. It doesn't happen overnight. You don't get cured overnight, you don't recover overnight, but it's an ongoing process, and I wanted to show that even when you mess up, you cannot beat yourself up about it. It's better to sit down and really, even if you don't want to, and it's scary to dig deep into your emotions and figure out why am I doing these behaviors? Why is this cycle, this pattern continuing? And what do I need to do to break that pattern? So if any of this sounds like you or it might help you, by all means, maybe try drinking more water, eating more throughout the day, those kind of things, and see if your binge purge episodes decrease. Or if that doesn't work for you, you gotta sit down and figure out what is gonna work for you to get better. But thank you again for clicking on the video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. For more videos about diets and eating disorders and recovery, please subscribe. Feel free to leave a comment, a question, a suggestion, or something you want to hear about. Feel free to leave that comment, and I will see you next time. Bye.